Hey y'all, welcome back to Movement Link. So, what types of exercises are best to include in testing days? So, remember, we like to divide up our workouts and our time in the gym and our time outside of the gym into 80% of what we're doing should be training, meaning we're still pushing hard, but we're prioritizing developing skill and technique, and then we're going hard. Then 20% of our workouts need to be testing, where we are testing where you're at, and we want you going as hard as you can with the techniques that you've learned. We want to create these testing workouts where they're repeatable, so you can do it again, and then 3 months, 6 months later, you can do it again and again, so we can see if we're getting you better in a lot of different ways. And we can see if this is getting better, but this is getting worse, maybe we have some gaps in our training, or if everything around the board is getting better and we have a good selection of testing workouts, then we know we're getting fitter. So we can take that scientific approach to test where you're at. So not every exercise fits well for testing. And so this is where a lot of people get upset with kind of the CrossFit competition style, is because a lot of CrossFit competitions use training exercises to compete in. And in my opinion, this isn't the smartest way to go, because ultimately what training exercises need to do is transfer to real world things, and we should be testing in real world things. So what are examples between the two? We've got push-ups. Push-ups is a training exercise. So in the real world, there's no situation where you would do a push-up. What we would do is something that looks more like a burpee. We'd stay tight and use that skill we've developed in the burpee of creating the arch and snap ourselves off the floor. So there's no situation out in the real world where if you're getting attacked, you do a strict push-up to get off the ground and go. We're going to do a burpee in that situation. So there's going to be certain exercises that are going to lend themselves to training. So the push-up is an extremely amazing training exercise, and we use them all the time. They're great. But as soon as we start testing in push-ups, one, we're testing in an exercise that's not really functional. And so what that does is it really promotes bad technique. So now if I just drop from the top and bang against the ground, I get rid of kind of the stimulus of the push-up. I have to get real good at trying to find these like shady lockout positions just for something that counts as reps. I have to get really good at maneuvering my spine around just a little, so it's not enough to get called for a no rep by a judge, but it's enough to create a huge advantage on leaving my weight lower to the ground. And so it just promotes this overextended back angle. It promotes wider. There's just so many things that I would do in a goofy way if you said do as many push-ups as you can for $1 million versus let's do push-ups in a way, and I'm going to give you $1 million if you can get this thing to transfer into this thing. I would do these things very, very differently. So what are exercises that are great for testing? These would be things where you almost don't need a judge to tell you if you did the exercise. Pick something up and take it over there. Maybe hold it over your head and carry it over there. Running around the block is great, because what we see is we want to pick things where the better technique people and the fitter people are going to do better. So let's just use running around the block, and I'm going to make a pretty stupid example here. So if the test was how fast can you run around the block, you can crawl, you can skip, you can jump, you can do whatever you want. You can run with bad technique, you can run with good technique. The people who are going to be the best are going to be the fittest mixed with the best technique, and that is going to make the best person. But there's no one out there saying you didn't step correctly, that's a no rep. So things like squats, these are great training tools. But the reality is when we're now squatting for a testing workout, now I've got to try and go exactly to parallel. I need to shorten the range of motion up. So now I have a huge motivation to go wider on my stance. So I start getting motivated to do things in these loophole ways where I can get credit for a rep, but ways that don't completely transfer over. So For this reason, this is why we only do testing 1 or 20% of our workouts versus 80% of training. But also, this is why in our testing workouts, we're trying to choose exercises where there's less judging, or really the judging doesn't really matter to us. There's just less motivation to do things in a crappy way to get better scores. So we're looking for things like a rower. Okay, so on the rower, again, the people with the best technique and the best fitness are going to be the best rowers here. And if you're rounding and doing all these nasty things that we don't want to see on the rower, there's no rep for any of this stuff. But those people are not going to be as good as the people that can maintain the shoulder and back angles and get the right timing down. So again, we want to find real world things to test, and we want to save the exercises for training. That way we're not motivating ourselves to do shady stuff that's actually at a detriment to our training. But even if some of those exercises slip into the testing workouts, it's not all bad news, because we're keeping our testing workouts in that mindset of get the best score possible using the techniques we know. We're keeping that mindset to just 20% of our workouts anyway, so we've kind of mitigated the risk, and we still have the 80% of our workouts where the goal is develop skill, use good technique, and then go as hard as you can under that. Hope that helps shed some light. And if you're out there developing your own training and testing workouts, even if you're out there trying to develop your own competition, I highly recommend thinking about it as what is truly functional and what is an exercise that is a functional carryover. A snatch can make us get really good at jumping, but if someone has been doing a barbell snatch for 5 years and they've really developed that top end strength, for someone who is extremely fit, explosive, maybe someone who's been playing football for a bunch of years or rugby, and they come in and they've got all the speed, strength, power, they just don't have the years and years and years and years. Maybe they have a year or two of snatch. Their numbers are going to be drastically different, but is their fitness actually drastically different? The snatch is an amazing training tool. That's why we use it, but it's probably not the best testing tool. Again, unless you're in Olympic weightlifting. So, stuff to consider. Hope this helps. Talk to y'all soon.